everybody, it's Romania Black, and we're starting a brand new show today. I'm so excited. So, did a poll on Patreon. It was open to the public. Patreon helped me narrow down the choices because we've had a show to replace Attack on Titan Junior High, and I was like, I want to watch something fun and just happy. Something really exciting and fun, and just something that's a little bit more lighthearted than kind of the darker, more deep psychological shows that I'm watching right now. So I put a bunch of options up on Patreon. As always, Patreon helps me narrow down the polls. We narrowed it down to 5 choices, and these were the choices. And by and large, Spy times family or Spy family, however you want to do it, if it's like a ship or whatever, Spy X family, however you want to say it, it won by and large. And so I'm really excited because I figured out, doing the timeline of how long these reactions will take week to week, by the time this first season ends, the second core or second season will be starting in October. So it's going to actually work out really cool that as I'm finishing up this season, I'll be able to go seamlessly into the next season and watch week to week with you all, which will be really, really exciting. So I am kind of happy that it won because one, I've been really wanting to watch this show. I know it's really popular, and I was like, well, if it's really caveat, if it's really popular, it's at least going to be fun, right? It may not be the best thing since sliced bread, but it's at least going to be a fun show because people aren't going to watch boring. So that's at least that. It's popular for a reason, and so I'm excited to just see what all is entailed. Even if it's just a mainstream fun romp, that's what I need right now, so I'm pretty excited about it. But I'll be honest, I know nothing about this show. Absolutely nothing. And I don't want to know anything. As you all know from my channel, I go into these series blind. I don't want spoilers. I want to just experience the show and have it come out. So if you do want to comment down below, and if you do have spoilers, please tag them. Please say, hey, Romania, don't read this. It's a spoiler. And then go on with your spiel. And that will be just fine. But I know nothing about this show other than it probably involves spies and a family. That's all I know. So yeah, I'm just going to go into this show blind and see what happens. But I am excited that by the time we finish this first core, the second core will be started. So there won't be any breaks. We'll just go straight into season 2 or core 2, and that'll be really nice. So, with that being said, I'm excited to see what all this show's about. I don't know, see what all the hubbub is. So thank you all for voting. I hope you all enjoy the reaction, but let's not waste any more time, shall we? We are going to start Spy times Family, and we are going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. Okay, I see why this is popular. In the first episode alone, I'm like, okay, no, you've intrigued me. This is gonna be absolutely adorable and fun. And I love, for the record, I was excited about this show right off the bat because I love crime and noir, and I love crime shows and noir. And I love shows that deal with like mystery and kind of that subgenre is something that really appeals to me because there's usually lots of fun twists and turns with the storytelling, and with the characters, they usually have like a complicated past, and so they're very layered and complex. And Loid seems like he's going to be that, Twilight. And so that's going to be interesting. But yeah, so for the record, you know, the husbando poll is going to be coming out in November for Patreon. Hope you put Loid on it because what a hottie. Just, oh my gosh. Okay. But yeah, so I really like spy shows, and I like things that deal with like crime and mystery and noir. And this seems to be, it's happening in this fictional world. And so this little fictional offshoot world from our own. And so it's going to be a lot of fun. But what I like about this show is that it's dealing with like the super secret, like seedy underbelly and like the spy world. And it has like a darker edge to it, right? There's a darker edge, but it's just an edge, right? For the most part, it's this really cute, like, it's interesting to see our main character, to see Loid, whose name isn't really Loid. We don't know his real name. To see him kind of be the fish out of water character, right? Because he comes across, you know, when we first meet him, like, he's got it all together. Everything's going his way. He's just doing his job. And then he gets thrown out of his comfort zone having to become a parent. and to this child. And for the record, I'm actually happy that Anya is an actual child. At first, I've seen like promo art on Twitter of seeing there's a dark-haired woman that I'm assuming is going to become the wife. We don't know. I don't know her at all. I just have seen a promo picture of him and her and the kid and Anya. And so, but I don't know anything about the dark-haired woman yet. But seeing them, I was afraid that like Anya was actually just really short and she was a full-grown person that was just really short imitating a kid. And I was like, how's that going to work? But no, she is actually a child. But the twist that she's a telepath is amazing. I'm like, oh! And the fact that Loid doesn't know that she's a telepath. I'm like, okay, no one knows. So it's really cool that you have this actual spy who's Loid, who's Twilight. And then you have this little kid who kind of is a spy herself. She's got this, her and Loid are very similar. So I like that a lot. But I want to go through this episode because there is some world building going on here. There's so much to like about this episode. It's a really, really good pilot. I'm like, if you wanted to get somebody hooked on this show, this runs the gambit of all the emotions you need to like hook people into what your show's about. That it has the spy elements. It's got this kind of darker edge to it. Like when Anya's like, I want a gun with a silencer. I'm like, oh, you're a child. And then, you know, she's like looking through his briefcase for bombs. I'm like, oh, Loid, you need to learn how to be a parent. Like just how to handle kids. But there's those elements. But then there's like the heartwarming, like Loid, because it's not just Loid becoming a parent. It's him opening up to people and accepting that he can have people in his life. He's not just a one-man show running, like, because from the very beginning, Loid sets up that he's like, I've dedicated my life to this profession. It's all I have. I know it's a no glory position. I'm not going to get any recognition for it. I'm just going to go through the motions and just do what I can to survive. And I don't expect any accolades or anything like that. Or he knows he's not going to get any. We'll talk about that when we talk about the train scene. But yeah, this animation for this, we'll just walk through this episode. The animation for this is so good and smooth. And I think it's Wit Studio doing it. Is that right? Which did the first 3 seasons of Attack on Titan. Like, very, very clean. I like it. It's very clean. It's got a very distinct style. For the record, I love that the spy organization, their emblem is like somebody giving the side eye. Their emblem's like just like casually looking over. It's such kind of like a parody on, you know, a lot of organizations and stories have like the eye, the all-seeing eye. And this was just half closed, like whatevs. Like just, so this organization's talking about one of our diplomats perished in a car accident in Ostania. And so we believe it to be an assassination by the East far-right political party. Am I going to have to bring Whiteboard Coon out for this at some point to like navigate where everything is happening at? So you have the East's far-right policy, which I guess would be over here on my side. The East far-right policy is assassinated this one guy. And we have our group of spies. I like that it's kind of like 40s, 50s themed. Like everybody in the suits with the stuff. It's modern, but everyone's outfits kind of have like that old, like James Bond style, like Western look to them. Interesting. The East far-right polity. So we have Ostania and we have Westalis. They're plotting a war against our nation of Westalis. Okay, interesting. So we've got these 2 countries that are side by side, Ostania and Westalis. We've got to figure out everything we can do to figure out their plan. Let's let him take care of it. The best agent we have. Aha, Twilight. With a master of disguise. So interesting. A man with 100 faces. So, who's secretly really hot. So, the foreign minister wears a toupee. Again, there is an element of, there's a spy element, but then there's kind of a little bit of a parody on it, not only with the emblem being a side eye, like just kind of like whatevs, but also there's a little bit of a parody element being like, the big thing is that the foreign minister wears a toupee. And the one guy doesn't like that. It's like, that's the issue. So there's kind of like a little cheeky wholesomeness to it in the weirdest of ways. Right? He's like, I even have the negatives. And so he's like, well done. And now that you look back on it, you can kind of see Loid's eyes through the disguise of being the one guy. Now we can force him to resign. And then, yeah, so he kind of just, yeah, he does. He disguises himself really well. And then he's like, and then the actual guy shows up and he's like, oh my God, but you just, and I love that this guy, I love that he like runs his hand down his face like, oh my God, I messed up. I gave it to him. He got me. Codename Twilight. And he just rips off the mask. A spy. And he has like the little pin that's the emblem of the spy agency. I love that he puts the glasses on and he like fixes his hair. And he's like, in an era when we're about to be at war and information is just out of sight, this man survived that battlefield by being a master of disguise with 100 faces. So he was dating that guy's daughter, and so that he could get closer to getting the toupee pictures. And he was just dating her for that reason, because she's kind of like, meh. And then he was going by the name Robert. He's like, yes, that's rather unfortunate. And so then, what a perfect way to introduce Floyd's, Loid. A perfect way to introduce Twilight's character and how he views relationships and how he views romance and things like that is this scene where this man with the blushy face like proposes to the girl who's like all excited. And she's like, oh, Robert, do you think one day we'll get engaged? He's like, let's break up, Karen. Of course her name is Karen. And he's like, what? He's like, I can't sense any intelligence in your conversations. He's the coldest, the worst, right? It's just setting up like how cold and emotionless he is as far as interpersonal communications goes. He's just treating everything as part of a mission. He doesn't have to get close to anybody. He doesn't have to forge any bonds. He's like, nope, I will keep everybody at arm's length and will not let them get near me. But you can't do that with a child. So it's like, oh my God. He's like, I have no further use for your family. And the funny thing is, he's like, I'm also done with the mask known as Robert. And he throws both the glasses and the pictures away. And I'm like, but you could have kept the glasses in case you needed them again. And then this whole, like, we set up his character in roughly 1 minute. Like, we have the whole exchange with Karen where he doesn't care about her or her emotions. And he's like, nope. And when he says here, marriage, conventional happiness, he's like, I got rid of those aspirations as well as my identity the day I became a spy. So he's like, in order to do my job well, I can't have a past. I can't have any other identities than the ones that are given to me, right? And it's funny because Twilight is, you know, that little period between day and night. So he's just always kind of in that middle ground, right? He's just sort of like, he's not one thing or the other. He's just kind of vague, right? Which fits him being a spy and a master of disguise. And so that whole, the idea, he says, I got rid of those aspirations. It doesn't say that he never had those aspirations. And we kind of see a little bit through this that maybe he wants to have happiness in a conventional life, but he's a spy, so he can't do that. So he's just cast them aside. Doesn't mean he never had those aspirations, but he just got rid of them. But yeah, in the matter of like 1 minute, we didn't get the OP for this, by the way. So I'm excited to see what the actual OP is when we get it next episode. But you can just tell that he's like, I am committed to my job. That's what I'm going to do. I love the exchange of information. We have this guy sitting on the bench with the newspaper, and it says tensions between Ostania and Westalis exacerbate Cold War. I'm like, yeah, watch out for spies. So this is very much like 50s, 60s, like getting into that era, and it's kind of basing it off that. Very fun. I kind of like it. I love the exchange of information. It's so good. Cypher C. Okay. So, and then he's decoding the message saying good day or perhaps good evening, Twilight, just decoding everything. I love it. And saying, well done on your last mission. Thanks to you, the minister lived another day to the great benefit of our country. Now then, I have your next mission. I love this. And so the target is the National Unity Party, Donovan Desmond. Yeah, who looks like a Tim Burton character. He looks like his eyes and everything look like something off a Corpse Bride. It's kind of hilarious. He's a threat between the truce between the East and the West. Your mission is to get close to him and probe any seditious activities. And he says, in order to achieve this, you will get married and have a child. I love he just spits the coffee. Oh, he's like, sorry, what? He's extremely cautious and rarely appears in public. So he's got to infiltrate the private school his son attends to like bug the kid and go to informal get-togethers. So yeah, so this guy, he's super private, doesn't come out in public a lot, but he has a kid. And so the only way to get close to him is like to go to parent-teacher conferences with this political leader. And the only way to go to parent-teacher conferences at this upper echelon charter school is for him to have a kid that can infiltrate it. And so I like that the spy organization are like, just have a kid, have him infiltrate this high-end school. You're a professional spy. You'll find a child capable of doing this. I'm like, it's a private school, so they have to have the exam. So he's got to do his homework to find a kid that can do this. And he has 1 week to pull it off. I love that you see like Loid with the coffee running down his chin. He's like, you expect me to produce a child in 7 days? And everybody on the train's like, what? Oh my God, it's great. He's like, excuse me. Operation Strix. And so it's key to maintaining peace between the East and the West and the world. So like, we got to take out this politician because he's threatening basically, he's a threat of war between these two countries. We need to eliminate him. And so a hero who casts no shadow. So then we tie into the whole thing with Loid and how he's viewed. He's a hero who casts no shadow. He's not noticed. The great deeds you and your fellow agents do will never see the light of day. And his eyes narrow at this, where he's like, you'll never earn any medals or make it into the papers. It's a thankless job. You're in the shadows. You'll never receive recognition. No one will ever know about you. And it seems like in part, Loid kind of resents that a little bit, that everything he does will go unnoticed, which kind of ties to him being an orphan himself and goes back to his own childhood where he was ignored or not noticed. And even it's kind of translated his childhood of being ignored and having no identity or agency transfers into his life as a spy, as an adult, where he's doing all these things, but there's no recognition. No one notices him. And so it's kind of like his childhood has transitioned into his adulthood. And it's interesting how they subtly just kind of mix that in there. And they're like, even so, never forget that everyone else's day-to-day lives are possible because of your blood, sweat, and tears. So he's like, you're doing this for the betterment of society. Like, you are helping these other families to live a normal life. And of course, you have the visual juxtaposition of Loid by himself in the train car with just him and his coffee and his paper. And then you cut to the forefront where there's a family looking out the window with the kid and everything, enjoying, like, they're none the wise of what's going on. They're just enjoying their day-to-day life. It's very good. It's very clever. I like it a lot. Mm-hmm. And he's like, very well. I abandoned my identity when I became Twilight. But it sounds like he was an orphan. He didn't really have an identity. He was, that's why he relates a bit to Anya, because she's kind of been shuffled from orphanage to orphanage. She doesn't have an identity and she doesn't even know where she came from. He's like, I'll play the part of a father with a child if I must for the sake of a better world. He's like, I'll take on this task of being a dad. How hard can it be? Oh my gosh. And I love that the moment he's looking at the apartments, he's just checking for wiretaps and that there are exits, like securable escape routes. Like, that's all he cares about. Doesn't care about any other features. And they're like, and Mr. Forger, like a forgery, like forging documents. Hilarious. I love that that's his name. Loid Forger, a psychiatrist, which is also hilarious because he's a psychiatrist who he barely understands himself, it seems, because he doesn't really have an identity, and now he's expected to have a child and a wife. It's funny. I like it. This is my new life. Oh my God. With a family I love and a happy home life. Like, just something he thinks is just a game. Like, not possible. And I love the idea of a boy and a girl. And he's like, oh, well, I'll be deciding on that soon. A burden for a spy, having a family. Because, yeah, he's used to working alone. So the idea of having to involve other people, that's where a lot of this is going to come into, because it's like he's used to working alone all this time, and now he has to involve not one but two other people into his life, into his affairs. He's got to, you could see why Loid would be stressed, because now he's like, I've got to not only worry about myself, but I have to worry about these other people. And when he goes to town with Anya, we kind of see that expressed. I feel so bad for the orphanage, because yeah, it's all, there's trash outside heaped up, like the lights and everything are broken. And you see when Loid first goes there, he has like the sparkly eyes and the charm. He's like, oh, I'm here to adopt a kid. And this guy's like, just take whichever one you want. It's like, oh my gosh, like, he doesn't have to put on the charm. And there's all these kids. And he says, the shadier the establishment, the more likely these kids have a complicated past and it'll be easier to alter their stories. It's like, yeah, it's gonna be easier to hide information about them if they come from like an orphanage. They don't really have a past. It's gonna be easier to cover up things, right? I can make this mission work if I have a child. And yeah, Loid would rather work on his own, but he can't exactly disguise himself as a child. That's the thing. No matter how skilled a spy I am. I love that when you can kind of see her power work because there's sparkles. She's like, what's the sparkles? I'll be honest, whenever she was going through and listening to like and hearing the voice in her head and it turned to the doll, I thought the doll was talking to her, but it was the scientist talking to her. I was like, oh my God. He's like, I'd like a child who can read and write, which she necessarily maybe can't, but maybe she does know how to read and write, Anya. The smartest one we've got. She doesn't talk much, but she's a good kid. And in his head, he says she's a creepy, disgusting little brat. But knowing now that she can read minds, she heard that. So that's sad. Oh, I'd be thrilled to get her out of my hair. Oh, that's so sad that she heard that. And then, he's like, the earliest age students can enter Eden College is 6. She looks no more than 4 or 5. And then that's when she says, I'm 6. And he's like, oh. So she may not be. She may only be 4 or 5, but she lied. She's a liar just like him. I love that she's trying to make herself taller. She's so freaking cute. Anya is adorable. I love her. And she tries to prove that she can do the crossword puzzle and everything, but she can read minds. What I love about this is that Loid, Twilight, does not know she can read minds. Like it's still off the books. Only Anya knows. And so I love that because it's like, she's like, that's my one secret to her identity. It's like part of her, right? That she can keep. And so he's like, I'll take this one. She can clearly pass the exam. And she's like, nope, I can just read your thoughts. And he's like, just take her already. Oh, it's making me nervous how well everything's going. Famous last words. And of course, she's like a spy mission because she's a kid. She thinks this is going to be a lot of fun and cool, right? Test subject 007. I didn't catch that the first time. Oh my God, that's amazing. So like she possessed the ability to read people's minds. She was unintentionally created in an experiment by a certain organization. Like she has like the Bond villain. She has a Bond villain backstory, right? But she's working with Loid. Oh my God. So, and later fled their facility. She's been wandering around looking for someone to take care of her. I love that element of it. Like that little fantastical element to this makes it just hilarious. Especially the fact that he doesn't know. And you're going to be my daughter. And if anyone asks, you've always been my daughter. But Loid he's so literal. He doesn't understand, like, with little kids. And I love the fact she is actually a little kid. So he's got to learn how to parent alongside her. And he's like, we're the forgers. And she's like, I've been Papa's child for a very long time. And the woman's like, and he's like, that wasn't necessary. I love it. Oh my God. And of course, she likes this show called Spy Wars. So that's one of the reasons why she really wanted to go with him. Okay, and it may just be me, but the main character of Spy Wars looks a lot like Loid. Like, a lot like him. It's just him with a mask, which is kind of funny. I wonder if she, like, associates him, like, with the character on the show that she really likes, like, subconsciously. And so we see on the TV someone saying, anyone who gets in my way will regret it. And he's like, I'll have to forge an ID for her. And so he's like going out to do that. And she's like, but I want to go. And I just love the idea that he has no clue. He's like trying to shake her off. And everybody's like, what a terrible parent. Like he doesn't know to hold her hand. And he's like, when she says, I want a pistol with a silencer. And he's like, sure, maybe we'll find one on sale. I'm like, no, Loid, you can't give a little kid a gun. Stop. And he's like, to be a master spy, you have to act normal and never draw attention to yourself. Which with a small child, fat chance of that happening. We must do everything we can like a normal family. And she's like, Papa, save me! She's like spinning in circles. And then the woman's like, you have to make sure to hold your little one's hands. But I love this part because he's like, if I hold her hand, then I have one hand tied up and it will make it difficult to prepare for an enemy ambush. Like he's always thinking of what bad could happen. Like Twilight is always looking at the worst case scenario and saying, okay, what could happen that's going to mess this up? that is going to make my life more difficult. And I love that Anya, she can hear the whole time. She's like, oh, okay. She's like, oh no, an enemy. Her facial expressions are adorable. She's like just how her face is. And she's like looking around because she's a little kid and hiding. He's like, what are you doing? And then of course, Loid doesn't know that she can read minds. And he's like, does she hate me? Is she hiding from me? Did I hold her hand too early? What's going on? Like he can't read her thoughts. I have to maintain a good relationship until the end of this mission. I must know more about this creature. And she's just looking at him like, I'm not a creature, is the first step towards peace. And she's like, understanding me will lead to world peace, but that ties to the facility that told her that her powers would lead to world peace. So she's like, what the heck is going on? I love that she says, I like peanuts. And I like she says it in English, peanuts, but I don't like carrots. Her facial expressions are freaking adorable. I love it. Baconries. And he's like, that's a bakery. They don't sell bacon. That's the first sign to him that she's kind of putting it on because she can't properly read the sign. And she's like, oh no. She's like, and she doesn't know how to pay for things. And that's where she gets the Spy Wars poster. And so he's thinking maybe she's not as intelligent as I thought. So I may have to take her back. And that's the thing. Like he doesn't understand about relationships and about how people emotionally feel. And so he talks about taking her back and getting another child. And it's like, you can't just, she's a little kid with emotions and you're just going to take her back? Like, no, how would she respond to that? And he's like, I'll buy you peanuts. Just stop crying. And she's like, okay, good. I freaking love it. I love these like, oh my God, these kids, taking care of this kid is hard. And I love that she like drools on his coat. She drools on his coat. I freaking love it. Oh, and I love that his hat's sideways and his eyes are dead. And he's like, this is irrational behavior. I can't do this. I don't have any kids myself, but my aunt has 2 kids and I've like helped take care of them since they were little. And so I definitely understand the struggles that he is facing. I'm like, oh my gosh. And he's like, I need manuals to help me understand. And he's got all these books. He's got like way more books than you need. And it just, the struggle on his face. He's like, oh my God. It's so freaking hilarious. I'm like, our boy Loid, he is definitely, he looks husbando material. He's got a ways to go. And he's just reading super fast through all the books. So he clearly is intelligent. Like he was intelligent, obviously probably from a young age. And that's how he kind of got into the spy business. And the thing of it is, the way he talked about getting Anya is probably the same way he was recruited into the spy business, because he has a complicated past that's easy to cover up. So it's him attaching himself to her and realizing how similar they are. Mm-hmm. And giving them ability to think for themselves and their future. And I like that Loid kind of narrows his eyes at that, because I don't think that he himself really had an ability to think for himself or for his own future. He just kind of got wrangled into the spy business and seems like he was groomed to be a spy and didn't really have much say in his future. So the idea that proper parenting involves that, he's like, well, I didn't have that. So that's funny that that's how it's supposed to be. He's like, as soon as we're done with this mission, I'm sending her back to the orphanage. That's the extent of our relationship. I'm like, no, not the power of Nakama, but the power of family is going to overtake you, Loid. Just you wait and see. Like from this first episode, I'm like, oh no, by the end of this, you're going to be, I was like, you're not going to take her back. No way. Aw. And then I love that he has to hold her up in the room with like a dumpster in front of it. But I love that just like a little kid, and she did hide the fact, she didn't say people's minds. She's like, I could just read people's. He's like, no, you can't cheat. And she's like, oh, that's not what I meant. But he's like, my mission is not going to fail because you can't study. And I love that she just follows him around and like gets in all the little nooks and crannies, and she thinks it's just a game. She thinks it's fun. And he's like, this is not how it's supposed to be. And so he gets something about Anya's past, but it's not really any information. All it says is that she's been through 4 different orphanages. She's been adopted 4 times, and she's been through 2 orphanages, and that's pretty much all there is to it. Nothing is known about her background. She pretty much has no backstory that we know of, other than the fact that she's been experimented on and was created in a lab, by a seedy organization, right? I love that when we go to her, like, on the couch spread out with the peanuts, and her expression, it's so freaking hilarious. I love Anya and her expressions. They're great. She's like, I'm so bored. Spies aren't what I thought. And everything's padlocked. And so he's like, I can't have her messing with my spy equipment, so I'll lock it up. I can't believe he thought the code in his head. And she's like, I was like, seems a little bit of a plot convenience that he thought of the code in his head, right? And she's looking for bombs. Oh my God. The fact that she used, like, the equipment to take the message. Again, when I heard the doll, like, the talking over against the doll, I thought the doll was talking and it was like an imaginary friend for her. And I was like, oh, that's funny. But no, she sees a doll and she thinks of the people at the lab saying, you mustn't tell anyone about your power. And they're like, it's time to study Anya. And we see these scientists and she's like, but I want to draw. And they're like, don't bother with childish games. We must use your power for the sake of world peace. So we see her with her little tiny buns. I wonder if the buns are underneath her little cones that she has on her head. But yeah, so it's interesting. There is that parallel of being used for world peace by this organization that made her versus being used for world peace by Loid. There is a similarity there. She reminds me of Chibiusa from Sailor Moon. I'm assuming that's where her design comes from, because she has the pink hair and the pigtails, very much like Rini, like Chibiusa from Sailor Moon. I'm guessing that's where the inspiration comes from. I like it. It's really cute, and her big green eyes. And so she decides to put all the stuff up. But then, yeah, again, this is a spy show. So I do like the elements that we have this wholesome, heartwarming, like, Loid learning to become a parent. And then we juxtapose that with the actual spies and, like, people trying to kill him and doing all the martial arts moves. And then, like, just kind of breaking the chair over the guy and, like, eventually, like, using the disguise to go rescue Anya. And he says, like, when Anya, at first, when she's kidnapped, he's like, oh, well, then I'll just get another child. I won't worry about her. But it's like, you all know that he's going to go after her and save her. I'm like, oh, man, it's great. And I love the bait and switch that they do, where you see him on the ground and you think that it's Loid. And then when they pull the bag off, it's the other guy. It's like, it's so great. And then him using the flower to, like, attack them. Oh, man. But he's like, I risked everything by waltzing right into enemy territory. And as he's thinking this, she can hear everything that he's thinking. I'm a failure as a spy. And then she's like, Papa! And he's like, it's okay, I won't do anything. You don't have to be scared. But she knows it's him. He's like, this is why kids suck. But he grabs her. I figured out why I hate the sound of kids crying so much. Because I remembered my own childhood. And so we see, like, this just scrap heap and all this, like, just rubble and everything. No one reached out their hands to save me. And I was alone in despair, and I was so powerless, all I could do was cry. I thought I'd abandoned that past, but on a subconscious level, she was reminding me of me. No, actually. He did care about her. He just wanted to save her. And so he tries to tell her this lie about going to the police and they'll get her to a better orphanage. And he just wants her to have a better life. But she's like, no. She's like, you're such a liar. But I like that she says, you're a big liar, but a cool liar. She's like, you're lying to save me, to keep me safe. She's like, you're lying, but it's not, it's like what they call a white lie. It's like, it's a lie, but it's trying to keep me safe through it. And I like that instead she sticks around for him. The whole thing where Loid confronts Edgar, the guy that's been trying to get him, and has the gun to his head, and he reveals that he's known his daughter this whole time. There is a little implication with that, where Loid gets a little, I like that Loid is intimidating. Like he's funny when he's trying to be a dad, and he's relatable, and he's humorous, but when he's like being a spy, he's quite intimidating. I love these like good day or perhaps good evening. He's like, how's Karen doing? And he's like, how do you know my daughter? He's like, well, that's what spies do. And he's like, I know her height, her weight, her shoe size, her favorite foods, and even how many moles are on her body. I was like, ooh, there's that little implication that he's been with her, right? It's, you know, for being this wholesome, like family-friendly show, there is that implication that he slept with her in what he's telling Edgar. It's nothing compared to your criminal record. I know of her criminal activity too. So she's done some sketchy things. He's like, I also know how much you care about your daughter. So listen carefully. If you wish for her to have any semblance of a normal life, you'll leave me the hell alone. And he shoots the gun away. Oh, I'm like, yes. Yes, it's so, I'm like, ooh, Loid is not to be messed with. I like it. I like it a lot. And so then, yeah. And then we cut to him like walking away with the jacket and everything. And he sees Anya. And our dude looking pretty fine in a white t-shirt. Can't pull it off. And then but it's funny because she calls me a huge liar, but Anya's kind of a liar too. So that's really funny. That she's like, oh, Papa's a huge liar. And she's like, I want to go home to our home, Papa. And I like that Loid's like, he's like, are you sure? He's like, are you sure you want to come home with me? He's like, it's going to be a bad life. It's going to be rough. But she seems like she knows exactly what she's getting into. I love it. If you leave me behind, I'm going to cry. Being like, are you going to abandon me? Like, and that's when he thinks back to saying, okay, she's been adopted 4 times and returned each time. He's like, am I going to be the 5th? Am I going to return this kid? And she's just going to keep bouncing from place to place? Or am I at least going to use her for the mission? And he's like, you're a lot like me. Like, we just don't have a distinct identity. I love him just like patting her and saying, let's go home. And she's just like, oh, it's so cute. But let's move from that apartment. I spotted a poisonous snake there yesterday. I love it. And she's like, I don't like snakes. It's so cute. It's adorable. I officially love Loid and I love Anya. And she's like, I want to live in a castle. And he's like, we'll see if one's listed. Very funny. I like it. So then she has to take the entrance exam. And I love that she's looking around to get answers. And everybody's like, I don't know what to do. And she's like, gosh, like ultimate stress. She can't cheat because none of the other kids know what's going on. And so she thinks back and remembers when he was helping her. And she remembers. So she kind of has a photographic memory too, which she's perfect for being. That's the thing. Anya is perfect for being a spy because she's telepathic. She can hear what other people are thinking. She has a photographic memory. She's perfect to be a spy. I'm like, as long as she can decode what it means, that's so good. I'm like, the perfect like spy kid for this family. Nice. Eden College. Of course it's Eden College with the apple. Of course, subtle. But I love that she remembers him showing her like all things. She's like studying like, I don't like this. So cute. And then she ends up making the grade. And I love that for a moment, he has a dad moment where he's really proud of her, K212, and he sees that she passed. And she's like, I passed. And I love that in that moment, he's so relieved that he holds her up. Just like, I love that he holds her up. And she's like, yay. And he forgets for a moment that they're like out in public. And then his relief like washes over and he's like, exhaustion that pinup just hits me once. I was like, she's just shoving him and like, Papa, don't leave me. She thinks he's dying. He's like, you're gonna make me cry. And he's like, I relaxed. And he's like, what the hell's going on with me? And she's like, just come back to me. I'll be a good girl. He's like, because he's been all on edge every second of every day, like always on his mission on edge. And for a brief moment, he forgot all about that, was just a good parent. So cute. This was adorable. I see the hype. I see it. Like, this was a great pilot episode. Like, to immediately let you know everything you need to know about Loid, to let you know everything you need to know about Anya, We still got the dark-haired woman, which I'm assuming we're going to get in the next episode because they've got to secure a wife for the parent-teacher conference. And I love that she's like, Papa died. Like, he's just so exhausted from helping her. I was a little bit worried when the mailman came because I was like, what if he gives her like an envelope and it's a bomb or something? But they don't know that they're in this new place yet, so that's good. And I love that she sees him. She like tries to wake him up and give him the letter. But then she's like, oh, he's asleep there. And in her head, she's thinking like, could I be like a kid with a parent and like snuggle up next to him? Because that's what a little kid would do. Like when they want to snuggle next to their parent. And so, yeah, she does that. She like lifts his arm and like hugs him. It's so cute. She like hugs his little arm. And of course, that's when Loid wakes up and is like, physical contact, you're trying to kill me. Oh, it's like, he'll get there. He'll get there. He's like, I actually fell asleep in front of somebody. So he's like, let his guard down just enough. He's letting his guard down around Anya and it's worrying him. He's like, unacceptable. I need to get a grip. And that's when she gives him the letter. And then they see that Eden College is requesting both their attendance for the entrance ceremony and they have to, a family interview. So it's like a parent-teacher conference that both parents have to attend. And he's like, absolutely no exceptions. He's like, oh, damn it, I have to get with a girl now? No! And she's like, but mama doesn't exist. Oh, it's great. It's great. So yeah, this series, I have a feeling I'm going to have a lot of fun with it because it's combining a lot of elements that I like in series. And it's also like really like wholesome and lighthearted as much as it can be, right? And so, I'm very curious to see how this is going to go down with them trying, like, are they going to, can he go to like is there like a spy registry? Can he be like, hey, do y'all have any spies on hand that want to be my wife? Like, because here's the thing, he's got to find a woman that can be his wife, but also is capable of maybe being a spy. So you would think maybe he could contact the agency and be like, okay, look, do y'all have any like ladies that want to be my wife for this mission and we can like co-do this mission together? I don't know if how that works, or if he's just got to go find a woman that he's like, hey, are you a spy? I don't know. So that's going to be interesting. I don't know how he's going to go about doing that, especially with Anya there. So, I'm going to be curious to see what happens in the next episode, but I'm on board. I really think this was adorable. I liked this a lot. I see why it's popular right off the bat. I'm like, okay. So it's going to be fun. This will be a fun season to watch. So we shall see. But I'm curious to know your thoughts down below. Please no spoilers. Or if you're going to talk about spoilers, please tag them so I don't read it. That'd be great. Or like leave a bunch of spaces and be like, spoiler Romania. Leave a bunch of spaces and we'll be good. But otherwise, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back next week with episode 2 of Spy Times Family. Bye.